I'm here with some Bernie supporters at North Staters table here at Chico's Farmers Market, Saturday's Farmers Market. I have a wonderful lady, her husband. I think he's your husband. Sorry, but yeah, he is. Thank goodness. I got lucky with that. And his wonderful daughter. So maybe you could say a few things about why your family, your young family here, is so excited about Bernie Sanders for 2016.
Well, because he's for everybody, the middle class, lower income families, and as a family, that's just very, very important to us. And also, he's for equality, which means a lot to me, coming from an LGBTQ family, and also as a woman. It's very frightening to think that Trump could possibly become president. So it's very scary, because I don't want that to happen. I don't want my daughter to grow up in a world that's, regressing, that's not progressing forward. So I think that it's very important that we have someone who's a democratic socialist who cares about health care for people and who cares about everybody's future, not just the 1%.
Does she want to say something?
Do you want to say anything, Matilda?
I'm fine.
To put on the
You're
radio?
fine, okay.
No, she's shy.
It's okay. What about you, sir?
Got to get this button on for sure.
This guy's, he just put on a Bernie 2016 button.
Got to do it, yeah. Definitely equality is really important for us for sure. I mean, anyone who just dives straight in to that and is willing to support it, that gets all of my support. Yeah, I feel like there's just no games or anything with Bernie for sure. He just, is a very straightforward guy and just, for sticking up for everyone. So, yeah, I just have no qualms with that at all. Just someone who speaks from the heart,
Also that he's not taking any money from big companies or PACs or anything. That means a lot to me, too. So.
Thank you, guys.
You're welcome.
Do you want me to use your names?
If you want to. I'm Lindsay Wilkenmore.
And I'm Mick Wilkenmore.
I'm Matilda Myers.
Thank you, Matilda. I've been really blessed, man. There's an awful lot of CSU students here, man. I love their positive energy and their youthful exuberance. And I'm sitting here, actually standing here with Greg, who's got a lot of things to say about Bernie. Go for it, Greg.
I'm just a huge Bernie supporter. His legislation that he introduced to Congress to help tuition-free public colleges, I'm a big supporter of that. And I love all of his points, We are a country where the bottom 90% is definitely under the oppression of the top 0.1%. And I just think it's time that we start a grassroots movement to take our country back. And, this is my first voting cycle, and I'm happy to really get behind a candidate that I can stand behind. I was worried that I was going to have to settle for Hillary and her corporatist ways, but hopefully I can vote for Bernie.
So your first vote will be a vote as an adult.
Yes.
And a presidential candidacy will be for Bernie.
Yes, sir.
What one word would describe Bernie Sanders to you?
Charismatic. A lot of people say that he doesn't really have that the likeness that Obama did in 2008, but I love his hair, and I love his demeanor and just everything he is. He's the people's person, and I support him 100%.
I actually love the fact that Bernie does not care that his hair looks a little bit like my windscreen. That doesn't matter. Exactly. It's not the hair, doesn't make the person. Give me 5, Greg. You're awesome.
Awesome.
So you have something you want to say about Bernie Sanders?
He's going to win. He's the best guy for the job. He's for the people, and we're going to take it all the way.
How far is all the way?
To the presidency, to
the White House.
2016. He's going to be in there.
Awesome. I see you got a KZFR hat on. You're a KZFR supporter?
Of course.
Awesome.
Always for the people, not for the corporations.
People-powered radio. That's what it's all about. Can I use your name? You want to use your name?
Connie.
Connie? It's a great name. Thank you, Connie.
You're very welcome.
We got a Bernie supporter
Americans
here.
Need to just take Bernie's name and look at the actual issue and see whether they agree with his positions or not.
Versus whatever umbrella stereotype they want to put him under.
Exactly. Do you believe in this? How do you feel about this? Bernie Sanders is the guy for regular working people.
Awesome, sir. Should I use your name or is it? Nah, awesome. Thank you, man. Anonymous man with 3 rings.
Citizen.
It's worrisome that so many of my friends say, oh, well, he can't win. And I always say to them, well, then when do you start voting what you believe in? We have a candidate here who represents things that you say you support, but you don't want to vote for him because he can't win. That's why he can't win, because people keep thinking that. I have a feeling there's a groundswell of support for him that's surprising everybody. And I just hope it continues for 14 months. But he's talking about all the right issues. He's saying exactly what so many Americans really believe. And I just want to get people to stop thinking he can't win. That's the main thing.
That's what they said about Obama. That's what they said about, well, Dewey didn't win, but they put it on the front page. So, hey, he's grassroots. I think he has a much better chance than people are saying.
Oh, yeah, and I think we have a whole new millennial generation that are really thinking in terms of let's change things, let's solve problems. Yeah. And they're not doctrinaire, they're not necessarily strictly party-oriented. I really have high hopes for him. And if nothing else, he's going to bring these issues, he's going to force these issues into the public debate.
Awesome. What was your name? You want me to use your name,
Bruce.
Sir? Bruce?
Bruce Ertl, yeah.
Thank you, Bruce.
Well,
really enjoyed talking to you. What would you like to say about Bernie Sanders, ma'am?
I like Bernie. I'm going to vote for him.
Awesome. Want to use your name?
Sure, Kelsey Simmons.
Here we go. We got a lover for Bernie.
I love Bernie. I hope he wins. I'm rooting for him 100%.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
What is the actual table you got, Bob? You're registering people to vote, right?
Yeah, I have my signs down today because the wind's blowing so hard, but every voter, every person that I've registered to vote over the last, I'd say 3 weeks or a month, has been because of Bernie Sanders. Everyone. And he's just in, for months I hardly registered very many people at all, but all of a sudden Bernie Sanders gets in the race and people start registering because they're inspired by Bernie Sanders and his message.
Why are they inspired, and why are they coming over to Bob's table to get registered, do you think?
Well, because they just know from the way he speaks that he is honest and will carry out everything that he believes in. And that's what this country needs. Gandhi said that poverty was the worst form of violence, and that's what it is. And Bernie's the guy that can do something about that.
And I know you believe that really, really big, because I always like to give people credit where it's due. And I talked to Bob maybe a week after Bernie tossed his hat in the ring, and Bob was the very first citizen that kind of explained to me in a very powerful way of, no, Bill, Bernie is going to win. Maybe you could expand on that.
Well, I think Bernie has a great chance. The establishment hasn't recognized him, yet. But I think people like Bernie Sanders are going to be recognized and play a major part. I think he's going to get the nomination. That's what I think.
Bob, if you could distill down why you love Bernie Sanders into 30 seconds, give it up.
You look at the man, you look at his face, you hear him speak, and you know that he speaks the truth. That's it.
Bob, that makes him a person just like you. Bob Woods. It's such a beautiful thing. As I met this lady, I've met her before. Her name is Marva, but she described, maybe you could do it again, but I'll put it in my words, about how she likes to come over and talk to Bob because he's such a positive individual, and you always feel better when you walk away. And that's the Bernie Sanders campaign. All the people that I've been working with the Bernie Sanders campaign are positive people.
Well, the way I look at it is that there's been a long time for those of us on the progressive side of the Democratic Party that felt like we had somebody that represents us. You just listen to Bernie Sanders and you know that this is the one person that's going to tell the truth, which is, you've been seeing it for a long time, but there's been no one out there saying it, and he's saying it, and that's what makes him so marvelous. And Bob is, I have to say again about Bob, he's my spark. He's the one that got me enthusiastic, but it was more than that. Bernie Sanders has meeting a need that I personally have had for a long time, to have someone I truly feel represents me.
If I got a quote I like, I try to put it in the same person's voice. I'm going to do that, in all respect to Bob Woods. One of the first time I met Bob and I started talking, Bob says to me, well, you know, Bill, not everyone thinks like you and I do, but we just have to make sure they don't have the final say. That is one of my favorite quotes, Bob. Or maybe you could say it again and say how close I got to your wonderful voice.
Well, I just say go Bernie and all of us, because everything is needed. The work that you do, Bill, for homeless people and everything is just monumental to me. And so keep it up.
Thank you, Bob. I couldn't get a better endorsement right there. Everyone, Hillary's bragging about Vlasic or whatever his name is. I'd rather have Bob Woods endorsing me than any elected official I can think of off the top of my head, other than Bernie Sanders. He's an elected official. Thanks, guys. So I have Mona here. Mona, I'm really pleased to meet you. I'm actually looking at her T-shirts here. I've seen the shirts. Now I've seen the lady. What do you have to say about Mona's Bernie shirts?
Well, I produce them. They're fun producing. I just continuously buy shirts and print them out, and I just have Bernie on them because I want people to say, well, who's Bernie? Because the media won't allow him, to be on major networks, because major networks are owned by giant corporations that don't like Bernie's message. Bernie's message is we need to take our democracy back. And I resonate with that, and so do a lot of Republicans. So just basic people who see the suffering, who understand that people on all levels are suffering, elderly, disenfranchised people, mentally ill. We're all in this together. We're all in the streets. We're all looking at each other going, this is not right. This is not right. Everything's sort of falling apart. There's no jobs. And Bernie's the antithesis of what's wrong. He's just talking about how to turn it around. His message is positive. It's something we all know deeply in our hearts that will help this nation turn back toward democracy and away from oligarchy that it's become. So,
well, I think I wanted to kind of stop and maybe get a little more feedback from you on the suffering part, because I know you and I were having a sidebar conversation about the veterans and the military. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that suffering and maybe what's on your heart around that.
I talk to veterans quite a bit. I work in a hospital locally here, and veterans come through. A lot of them don't even use VA services. I think the percentage is almost 70% of vets don't use VA services, mainly because I guess they don't want anything to do with the military, but the VA is so inefficient in what they do. Bernie wants to turn that around, and his message is that if we can go to war, we need to be able to pay for all the collateral damage of what it does to people returning, veterans returning, and their families, and the community at large.
So do you work for the VA, or do you work in another medical facility?
I work at Enloe.
And what was your name again, Mona?
Mona Martin.
Mona Martin. So what would you want us to know right here, right now, if you only had 30 seconds? 30 seconds of Mona Martin on a soapbox. What would it sound like?
You got to dig a little deep and go check out Bernie online. Check him out on Facebook. We have North Staters for Bernie Sanders that's representing the people here in the North State. Get involved. Do just a little bit that you can do if you're overwhelmed right now, like a lot of people are. Find something, some way in your heart to donate some energy. Even pray.
I like it. I have to actually expand on the energy part, because there's a lot of positive energy around the Bernie Sanders campaign. There's not a negative message. There's no attacks. The people that I talk to that are involved with Bernie, it lifts my heart because they're positive people making a difference.
Right. The non-attack status that Bernie has developed and is using righteously, he's just saying, no, it's about the issues. We're not going to do this personal attack. It's so what he is, and it's so what a statesman needs to be, and we haven't had that in a really long time.
Thank you, Mona.
You're welcome.